welcome back to The Verdict. Today on trial we're looking at two subjects. We're looking at All Blacks positions and rugby experiments. I will elaborate about what that means, but first let me introduce to you our debating duo today. Goran Paladin.
Yeah, Rav. And it hasn't changed. We've got our old pal Muliaina back again as well.
How does that work? I keep surviving. Hey? Another week.
Survive the cold, yeah.
Gee,
Such a good job, Mills. We just can't help but get you back.
well, if I keep mentioning the fact I won't be here next week, then I always end up back here.
So it's the entertainment factor.
You should say, line in the sand, I will be back next week, and then you won't be.
No, yeah, exactly. But it's not close enough to Christmas for me to say that, so I'll wait till then.
Good call. The whānau will appreciate that. Okay, before we start, as always, a quick rundown on how this will go. I will present the case one by one, and you will tell us and the audience what side of the fence you lie on. Make it brief. Then you can present your evidence to support your statement. If you wish to respond, you may. Just be wary of time.
Comprende.
Cool? All right, let's get into it. All Blacks sought their redemption at the weekend against Argentina with a dominant win, but questions are still up in the air about positions. What one position do you feel is still up for grabs?
Go on, Mills.
Well, for me, really, I'll start on this one. For me, it's got to be the engine room. So up front, it's not so much one position, but sort of two of them, the two props, defining who those guys, really are. And I know we had a dominant display in the weekend, but, you've got to look also at who we're playing against. And it was a very young, inexperienced Argentinian sort of front row. So for me, really, it's the propping, the engine room, and where all the hard work sort of starts.
Okay, for me, yeah, I'd agree that is one of the problem areas as we move forward into 2021. But for me personally, I'd say that we haven't quite figured out our balance in the back three. I like Caleb Clark. I like Beauden Barrett. The jury's out on Geordie. And I think there are possibly better options to play on the right wing, options that are legitimate wings, and I'd like to see that change in the new year. Okay.
Mills, take it away.
So my argument really is the fact that if you look at the last, 3 test matches, yes, we've sort of gone in with a couple of new starts, Tuangawhasi obviously being out, having, being suspended and whatnot, but we still haven't quite established those guys that are going to go out there and have that balance of a game, or sort of have the overall game that we need. Now, you remember a couple of years ago when, last year actually, when Steve Hansen came out and said, our props are way off the pace in terms of mobility, particularly around defence and things like that. Now, for the last few years, or over the last sort of 5 or so years, we've been dominant, and our cornerstone really is our set piece. So defining that and making sure you get a balance between making sure that we have a dominant set piece, which we probably haven't. If I would be totally honest, over the last 3 games, we haven't until that last week, and also mobility. Mobility around defence and mobility around your ball carries and things like that. Now, I just don't think we've quite got to that level. I think in terms of the experience, and when you look at and you break it down to set piece, if I looked at it set piece purely, Joe Moody is setting the bar. He's set the bar in terms of that. His all-round game, he's starting to get a lot better at ball carrying, particularly off 9, coming off the weak shoulder and things like that. So those there, he's getting a big tick. But when you talk about defensively, where he goes when there's been a kick chase and things like that, how he connects, whether he gets off the line fast enough, there's all those questions around that. You look at Tuangawhasi when he comes back, very good on defence, but he's also been caught with those sort of high tackles, so technical.
Yeah, so do you take a risk on him then, knowing that he's got, he's a little fallible?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, and at crucial times, and so yes, he's physical and he loves to get amongst it, and he brings that sort of dominance. But do you weigh that up in terms of, well, if he doesn't get his technique right and we lose him, well, sort of we're 1 man down. So for me, really, getting that balance right in terms of that, you look at, Laulala, the way he's come on, but he's hot and cold. He's come off the bench. He's provided spark. He's started. He's brought that sort of impact. It's getting that. It's really been able to go that whole sort of, well, I suppose 60 minutes, for a prop before they, end up coming off. And I know there's a lot of technicalities around it, but then you also look at the young guys.
Because you played there a lot throughout your career.
Give us the ball.
He knows a
lot
about
all I want is to make sure that scrum's going forward and that line out ball's and we're going. Lomax, to Nukuafe. It's now their time to actually start to stand up. And then you've got Hodgman as well. And so they, for me, really, You know,
And where's Angus Tarvell?
that's yeah, exactly. You know, see, he's fallen off now. So I mean, he's fallen out of favour in some ways. I mean, you know, you've seen sort of where he got to and being able to play both sides as well.
Yeah.
So perhaps a guy that's could easily come off the bench. I just think there's an opportunity there for someone out of those players that I've mentioned, to really stamp up and say, well, hey, this is going to be my position, like an Owen Franks, like a Tony Woodcock. This is my starting position now for the next, 2 to 3 years, or leading right up into the World Cup. And right now, at the moment, I don't think we've got a settled sort of personnel in there that we can honestly say they're a dead set starting lineup. And so, in terms of where the coaches sit, the All Black coaches, they've got to think about the bigger picture, because it might not be that these guys, like I've just said, I've probably just contradicted my whole argument, the fact that we need starting guys.
I don't even need to argue against it. You've done it yourself.
But
I'll go home now.
Yeah, we need at least 4 to 6 guys, all in those positions that we can easily say, well, if we go out there, this is the sort of game we're going to play because we're dominant in this spot, and then we build our sort of game plan around that, and that's probably where the All Black coaches will need to get to before the Rugby World Cup.
See, Rav, I was pretty happy with what Moody and Laulala did. Okay, you got to take into account the opposition, and Argentina were heavily rotated, but that's why I'm not really going to talk about the props today. That's why I want to talk about the right wing. I like Caleb Clarke on the left. He's got size, he's got power. He moves so well for a big man as well. I liken him to, I think people unfairly likened him to Jonah Lomu. I think Jonah he was bigger, he was more powerful, and he didn't have the skill set that Caleb Clarke does. I liken Caleb more to Julian Savea in his prime. He pretty much could do anything and everything. So I like that on the left. Beauden Barrett, brilliant at fullback. I mean, you could chuck him in at 10, couldn't you, Mills? Because he's that good there as well. But look, put him in 15. On the right wing, the way I feel about Geordie Barrett is the guy clearly has skill. He is a rare talent, but sometimes you've just got to bide your time with these rare talents. And sometimes they can't make the step up either. I'm not saying that he won't, but at the moment, I feel like he's probably better served on the bench. We've already got goal kickers out there. Richie and Bodie they're more than capable. So why would you need Geordie just for goal kicking when you've got 2 great options there? And you've got other wing options that is their specific duty in the squad. And I remember having a chat with Geordie on the radio about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and he was in the midst of being rotated here, there, and everywhere, not just with the All Blacks, but at the Hurricanes. And I said, how difficult is it to slot into these various positions? 1 week you might be in the centres, the next week you're playing fullback, the next week you're on a wing. And he actually admitted it is quite difficult. You can't just sort of flick a switch like you're a robot and go, okay, this week I'm on the wing, and then you're a brilliant winger. And I feel like while he's had a good run in the All Blacks on the right wing, he hasn't quite cemented that spot. And in the blink of an eye, Will Jordan comes in, Mills, and he shows what a true winger can do with his blinding pace and, just fantastic acceleration off the mark, and he turns the game on its head. And I think guys like Will Jordan, George Bridge, when he comes back from his injury, they are better options on the right wing or the left if you want to swap sides with Caleb Clarke, and maybe Geordie Barrett is a bench option. And I was sort of thinking the other day in another sport, somebody like a Skippy Sinclair, Matt Sinclair in cricket, who was like a provincial bully with the bat. He'd score runs for free. It was just go out there, have a bit of fun. Oh, all of a sudden I've scored a double ton. Colin Munro is the same. He's got like an average of 50 odd in Plunket Shield cricket, but he never made the step up in the test realm. And maybe Geordie Barrett is that guy. Maybe he's really good at provincial level, Super Rugby level, but maybe he won't be that guy that we need him to be for the here and now, possibly down the track.
I don't know. I don't necessarily think so. And although it seems like I've agreed with your analysis on that and your argument, I still think he needs to be out there. I still think Geordie Barrett, whether it's wing or not, I think he needs to start. I think getting him used to that, for another year, if so be it, put him out on the wing. He can play those other sort of positions, but at the end of the day, they see him as a winger until Beauden Barrett either doesn't come back from Japan because the yen's too good, or is just unavailable, and then you can move back.
Would they ever dream of putting Beauden Barrett on a wing?
Hell no.
Well, this is it. But, you make the point that Geordie was exceptional throughout Super Rugby Aotearoa in the fullback position. He was the form fullback of the competition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yet when the All Blacks come around, it's not even a consideration. We're not going to think about moving Beauden.
No. Yeah, I mean, this is, opens up that whole argument.
Yeah.
If you're the form player in that form position, you should be starting in the All Blacks. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't work like that because the All Black coaches have a different vision, and that vision relies on where they see different skill sets and also the game plan that they're trying to implement. And at this very time, Geordie Barrett is a number 14.
This is a difficult one to call because it just seems like there's so much work needed all over the park. I'm guessing you both are looking at other things that need to be looked at, but you can only pick one subject today.
I wouldn't mind talking about the centres.
And that's the thing. Yeah.
There you go. I'm going to call this one a draw
Oh.
because there's a lot of work that needs to be done in this area.
Bledisloe won Wellington all over again.
Oh, gosh.
I had an opportunity for a late drop goal and didn't take it.
You
No, you
take
didn't,
it.
eh? You didn't, eh? That's
You
why I
had
had
to
to,
step
yeah. I had to come back and disagree with you there, man. I totally forgot all about that. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into our second debate today. Despite a start-stop season and year because of COVID-19, it did give rugby a chance to get a little creative with tournaments. So for you, what new invigorated competition stood out for you this year?
Without a shadow of a doubt, Super Rugby Aotearoa. I've been crying out for years and years and years for New Zealand Rugby to provide us with a competition that we all want to buy into and enjoy. And, Super Rugby Aotearoa was the silver lining to a very dark cloud, and that was the year of 2020. Games featuring only New Zealand teams, New Zealand derbies, less matches because I think people don't want that oversaturation. Yeah, it was ideal. It was actually the perfect vaccine to 2020. Watching Super Rugby Aotearoa. Yeah, I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
I'd rather have a vaccine for COVID than that.
Yeah, and that's coming. That's coming. Yeah. Well, so we're led to believe.
Is it?
For me, really, it's a North and South game. I think it needed, this really, given the whole year and being able to expand on something else and come up with new ideas, I think bringing back that rivalry between the two islands and the way it also ended up, was absolutely fantastic. I think we can grow on that. And for me, really, even though there was no crowd at it, the skill level and what was produced, and once we got to the stage where we knew the eligibility and who was going where, I think the North and South game.
Yeah, I've got to disagree. Yeah, I like the concept, North v South. It's got legs. I'd like to see it again. But the eligibility was it was stupid. Like, how on earth do you have, brothers playing against each other?
Thought, yeah.
How do you have Damien McKenzie, who, you can smell the cheese roll on his breath. He's from the South, he's playing in the North.
Oh, the Jimmy's pies, mate, more like it, eh?
Come on, they've got to straighten that out if they want to do it again.
Well, I think they have. I absolutely think they've straightened it out. And when you look at it and you go, well, you're absolutely right. When it initially came out, okay, well, they're from the South Island, but what it came down to was who you played your first provincial game for. If you align yourself up, if you're from Auckland and Canterbury are going to pick you up, at 18 years of age, well, you're with Canterbury.
But you've had 18 years on the Taranaki front,
but that's your provincial. that is your provincial team. So at some stage, we've got to put a stake in the ground and say, hey, look, that's where you wanted to align yourself up. Yes, you played all your schoolboy days up there, but when it turned semi-professional and you were going to get money from a union, that's the union you play for.
Did any of the players turn around and say, no, I'm from here, I want to play?
Oh, I bet you they did.
Yeah?
I bet you they did behind closed doors.
How on earth are you supposed to be passionate about an island that you don't really know a great deal about? Imagine me, growing up in Auckland, and then all of a sudden I've gotten an opportunity to play for Otago or Canterbury or Tasman at the age of 18, 19, I just couldn't get on board with it. Yeah, they've given me a chance to play NPC rugby, but I'm from the North Island,
Hey, mate, you grow out of it, mate. You grow out of it. I did. I'm from the South Island, and I've ended up playing provincial rugby, for Auckland and then on to Waikato. And then, so although, gee, I hope no South Islanders watching this. Although I've got a love for Invercargill, and that's where I'm from. I relate more to the North Island side because that's where I played majority of my provincial rugby. From the very get-go, that was where I got my first contract. That's where I've ended up staying. Now, where it could actually become a little bit murky is if guys chop and change, and there's an ability for that.
Yeah.
There's an ability for that to happen because guys it's professional now. Guys are moving all over the place, and so if you do it that way and say, well, hey, hold on a sec, you now play for Canterbury, but 2 years ago you played for Auckland. Well, it's just going to be all over the place. So put a stake in the ground now, which they have, and say, well, who did you play your first provincial Mitre 10 Cup game for? And that's what they've done. Now, to get back to my point as to why I thought it was absolutely outstanding, I think this is a great chance to actually celebrate why our rugby in New Zealand. It's a climax. Whether you have it in the middle of Super Rugby Aotearoa or at the end of it, you join it on as an All Black trial. But I'm not just talking about the men's, the Super Rugby guys. I'm talking about having a whole, it's a festival. You bring it right up, from your 20s, north versus south to the women's and so forth.
Yeah.
You don't just say, hey, this is only for the guys. Let's make it, let's have that rivalry, right from the get-go, from when you're 18 and 19 years old, and you're saying, hey, this is where I'm going to end up playing, and make it somewhere like I harped on about Queenstown, but mate, let's go to a small union where it is. You're celebrating that whole sort of that rivalry, and you make it. We might only have 15,000 people there or 10,000 people, but you build that rivalry down in a small place like a Timaru or an like an Ashburton, or go somewhere like the Mount, and put it on for those sort of people. But we've got to get to a stage where you've got to create that rivalry. Look at the state of O and where that's got to. Now, I'm not saying we've got to get to that level now.
Yeah.
But I think it's so difficult to say this is a really good product. Let's try and jump on it and make it the same as the state of O. You can't. Okay, let's build it right from the go. So when you become a semi-professional and you're in that academy space or the Mitre 10 space, that's where you're going to align yourself up. And in a couple of years' time, when you get to that sort of the big stage, whether it's the women's or the men's, who you've aligned yourself up with and carry that on.
See, I just can't agree with that. Like the Barrett brothers going head to head just did my head in. But I like the idea of taking it to somewhere like Queenstown, especially cool. Queenstown is a tourist town, and if things continue the way that they are, then to be able to get an influx of people in to spend up big and go into those tourist shops and restaurants and things like that.
Not only that,
a great idea.
If you have a North and South game in Auckland, who's going to turn up?
Yeah.
I think let's give it to those little wee towns. So it might only be 10,000, but man, for the players even, it's fantastic. It's not so much whether you they'll bring a bit of income in there, but at this stage, if we do it next year and we put it at Eden Park, who's going to turn up unless you make it free? And I mean, we even made the Mitre 10 Cup free last week.
You'll turn up.
Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah, exactly.
For me, I'm really, really excited about Māori All Blacks v Moana Pacifica. I really want to see how that plays out. But in terms of these two competitions that you two have stated, I'm going North v South.
That's ridiculous.
Okay, Mills, a couple of questions. There was a few tweets that have been surfaced in relation to the Argentinian captain.
Yeah. God, they've been exhumed.
Exhumed.
Literally
That's
been
so
dug
true,
out of the earth.
from years and years ago about xenophobic comments.
Yeah.
You being a former professional athlete, how damaging is that for the Argentinian captain?
Well, I think first and foremost, I'm glad they came out and fronted it straight away. When that first came out and he fronted it, and he didn't sort of linger too long before he sort of came out and said there was no excuses. I know it was 9 years ago and very long time ago, but they acted very fast, and that's probably what that sort of needed to happen. It's a hard one, isn't it? I mean, 9 years ago, what he was like 17?
Yeah, 17, 18.
And I hate to think what I was doing when 9 years ago, and what can be sort of dug up, sort of then as well.
Or maybe you should front foot it, Mills. Why don't you tell us here on the
Nip it in the
verdict
bud.
today? Anything you want to confess to?
Luckily, I'm not on social media.
Okay, roll the tape. No.
Yeah. Well, have you guys
Here's something we prepared earlier. Roll vision.
Yeah.
I said roll vision.
Good man, Kingsley. Hey, man, you're tight. But it just, I mean, how dangerous is that? I mean, someone, you know, this is what social media has created. You know, this is life now. The world has moved on, but you're still getting things dug up from your past, unfortunately. So it's a massive lesson because you don't often think about it. As soon as you write these things and push click, you know, you don't realise it's going to come back later in life. So you've got to be, you know, very, very mindful of what you're actually posting. But of course, that's a very hard thing to do because you don't. You just click, you press, you know, record, and away you go.
Interesting. New Zealand Rugby Awards are just around the corner, and of course, the prestigious award is usually Player of the Year. So I'll ask you both this question: do you have an idea on who you would pick as 2020 Player of the Year?
Every year it's Bowden Barrett for me.
I disagree.
That's it.
I disagree. I think this year it should go to Aaron Smith. I think he's had a fantastic Super Rugby Aotearoa. I think the way he's led and stood up and matured in that, and also think he's probably the most consistent All Black that we've had. Yes, I know Richie Mo'unga has been outstanding, but I think in terms of consistency in the way Aaron Smith's played in the Test matches, and also Super Rugby Aotearoa, I think hands down he should receive that. In my opinion, given what he's done. Now there comes a stage, obviously, and he's hit that where you have to sort of, you know, come out of your shell in terms of your leadership off the field. And I honestly believe in terms of who he's got down there and the youngsters that have gone. You've got to remember also the Highlanders. They were supposed to be the wooden spooners this year.
Yeah.
You know, and how he sort of brought that team together, and then led on to, you know, TJ Petinala obviously had a great Super Rugby Aotearoa, but you know, when Aaron Smith got into that All Black jersey, the most consistent man on the park in my eyes.
Yeah, all joking aside, I was quite impressed by Sam Cane. And I know he came in for criticism for some of the comments that he made a few weeks ago, people querying whether he was the right man to lead the side, but yeah, thoroughly impressed by what he's done on the field. I think he speaks well. So yeah, I agree with you, Mills. Aaron Smith, but Sam Cane would be a close second for me.
Yeah.
I've loved the way he's come on as a captain. This is his first year. Yeah, he's copped a bit of criticism. For what
He was always going to get that
Well, he
criticism,
was.
wasn't
Yeah, and if he's a good man. He's a great man, and he didn't mean it that way. You know, what he meant was just that little minority group that sort of, you know, sat there and sort of tweet little things, or that's what he really meant. And but the way he sort of has responded and galvanised that team over the last couple of weeks, you know, that's a making of a great leader. And you know, I'll always remember the first time he played for the Chiefs. You know, when he came on as a quite young man to where he's got to now, and he will get better and better. You got to remember where Richie's come from too. So, and I think you're right, Goran. You know, he's been impressive, and man, look where he's come from in terms of his injury.
Yeah,
And the way he just throws
it was
his
a horrific
body.
Injury.
Like some of those hits, I'm thinking, mate, are you sure you want
Yeah.
to take control?
You feel worried for him, eh?
Yeah,
Absolutely,
do.
you are. I mean, 99% of people would not get up from some of the contacts that he's received. Yet he gets up and he looks like, you know, Frankenstein's monster, but he tends to shake it off, and all of a sudden he's
streaming down
making
his
more
face.
tackles and winning breakdowns.
It must be a go-to every time. You know, it's part of your KPIs as a 7 that you've always got to have a bleeding eyebrow
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah,
eh? Gee.
definitely.
Could
Always
they not
wish-
have got like a wet flannel for him in the
Just,
post match?
yeah, mate, just wiped it off or something. Nah, you've got to have it, mate.
Leave
That's
it,
part-
leave it.
I always wanted one, eh?
Leave
I always like, yeah, man, it'd be cool to have. I did get a black eye once because I got punched in the bottom of the rucker by a bloody Frenchman in Marseille, but man, that black eye was heinous. It was actually out here. It wasn't a cut. I needed a cut
no.
to look like Sam Cane or Richie. Like, yeah, man.
You just go into the sheds at half time, get a razor blade, do it yourself.
If you're going to punch me, make it look cool.
I was a wimp. I just put the ice on there straight away and kept it on there.
Ow, ow, it hurts, it hurts.
Panadol, give me some Panadol.
Comes over, hey, you're all right now. Someone get the ambulance.
Yeah.
The hematoma, it's out of control.
Oh dear.
Well, that's us, gentlemen.
Whoever replaces you next week's got a huge task. on
Huge
their hands.
boots to fill.
Yeah,
Huge
Exactly.
boots to fill.
Well, no. Oh, in Australia, this is what
Oh yeah,
Wednesday.
geez, we'll have to get you back then.
Well, you want to come back and talk about Australia, that's fine.
Gee, Wednesday. Yeah, okay.
And Māori versus Moana Pacifica.
Yes, there is a little bit. There's still a bit of rugby on. There's still a bit of
Oh,
rugby on.
see, wait.
Who knows? We might give you a bit of downtime.
Yeah, sweet. Let me know. Let me know by Friday, please.
Okay.
All right, we'll text you. Tweet you.
Tweet.
Yeah. From your account.
Yeah, from my only.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. As always, another fun way to finish this conversation. But Mills, it's an absolute pleasure, as always, to have you on the show. So thank you very much.
Likewise.
Yeah,
Thank
cheers,
you.
mate.
As for Goran and I, we will be back next week. What will we be talking about? Not quite sure yet, but we'll be back here, same place, same table, putting everything in sport on trial. Mā te wā.